Hey guys, what's up? MadSeason here, back with another video for you. We've all been through it. You've leveled up all the way to the max, you started gearing up, and the next step is raiding, or organized PvP if you prefer that. Regardless, you need a guild. You take to the forums, trade chat, word of mouth, or you ask your friends and find a home that's right for you. That's what I did, at least, way back in the day, and I'm happy to say that people I met 15 years ago I still talk to and play with today. Through my guild, myself and many others have built long-lasting friendships you wouldn't think possible through the ever-changing virtual world. But where my friends have lasted, my guild has not, and in the game's 15-year lifespan, we've all witnessed the rise and fall of thousands of guilds, whether they be on our server or high-profile professional raiding guilds. So, in this video, I thought it interesting to cover the biggest guild breakers in World of Warcraft, either for your entertainment or maybe a list of things to avoid for any aspiring guild leaders. The first thing that comes to mind for many of you, I'm sure, are raid bosses. Through the many raids in World of Warcraft, there have been a few so difficult or so frustrating that they not only wipe the raid, but also the entire guild. Some that come to mind for me would be the intro bosses, Razorgore and Veilastraz in the Blackwing Lair raid. With the simple nature of raiding back in Classic, having a fight such as Razorgore that wasn't as simple as wait for 3 Sunders and Zerg was quite a challenge to a lot of people, and with Veilastraz being a pretty tough gear check, many guilds who had conquered MC and thought they were the shit found out that they were just plain shit when the Blackwing Lair was released, and cracked under their pressure because they didn't have a hunter who knew how to kite. And who could forget the deadly ending trio of AQ40, and that's Huhuran, the Twin Emperors, and Cthulhu. Being an already challenging raid, these final 3 bosses were the 1-2-3 death punch to many guilds back then. Huhuran being an unforgiving resist fight that required you to farm level 40 dungeons, the Twin Emperors just being extremely unforgiving, a very mechanically complex fight to pull off at the time. You have to keep them separated or else they heal to full, and one only takes physical damage and the other magic damage, which was tricky because I thought warriors were the only tanks back then. Ah, screw it. Just spam Battle Shout. And of course, we have Cthulhu, who is deemed to be mathematically impossible to kill, even considering the best of the best gear for all 40 members with perfect play. And being before the age of multiple difficulty settings, if you couldn't beat it, you couldn't beat it. There was no alternative, and lack of progress broke any guild eventually. And the Burning Crusade, of course, hosted many excruciatingly difficult fights that remained unbeaten by 99% of the population until the inevitable nerfs came in. I could go through an entire list of raid bosses, but this is a subject that's been covered pretty thoroughly already, so instead I want to go outside of this realm and talk more about some of the lesser known guild killers of not only Classic, but the current game as well, and also include my personal experience having been in the same guild from the start of vanilla to today, starting with the transition from 40-man raids to 25-man. It's 2007. Just over 2 years players have spent in the world of Azeroth, and they're ready for their next adventure into the Outland, a realm filled with demons of the Burning Legion and lorded over by Illidan's Stormrage. Many new challenges await, including raids of course, and if you were there at the time, you couldn't wait. I was so excited, I think I spent all of my emotion for the rest of my life on launch, which is why I'm dead to the world today. But what's this? The grand scale of vanilla raiding scene had been pruned. No longer would we take 40 players into one raid, but rather just 25. An atmosphere of wonder and discovery was quickly dashed with the realization that there just weren't enough raiding spots to go around. A problem made worse with the fact that the first raid of the Burning Crusade, Karazhan, was sized for only 10 players, a meager fourth of the roster size designed in vanilla. Raiders, upon hitting level 70, were excited to explore new ground, only to discover that if they weren't part of the clique, they weren't part of the raid. My guild in particular had an A-team of officers who all started the raid as soon as they hit 70, leaving the rest of the guild to fend for themselves. They would take the best tanks, the best healers, DPS, the main raid core for all of vanilla, while the rest of the peons were left empty-handed. It wasn't enough to break the guild, but it certainly left a sour taste in people's mouths and led to many members leaving for greener pastures. And it was the same for many others. The subscription base of the game rose with the Burning Crusade expansion, but it seemed like half or less of the top raiding guilds coming out of vanilla would survive the initial pruning, depending solely on how the leadership handled the comparatively meager raiding roster. If the guild was to survive, smaller tight-knit cliques would form, and if it fell apart, from the ashes arose smaller guilds designed for the diminished raiding corps. The Burning Crusade was the death of the Zerg guild. But as I said, it depended on the leadership. If it was good and people were treated fairly, everyone raided and they had a good time, which leads me to the next part of the list.
Healers, for God's sakes, look for the fucking 30-second fear warning, or when it says 5 seconds till fear, get out of fear range. You can heal the main tank from outside of the fear range. It's not hard.
Okay, listen the fuck up. You are going to DPS very, very slowly.
Are you fucking serious? You fucking oh my god. I'm fucking done. I'm done. I'm fucking leaving.
We have no reason to lose the main tank, and I am blaming you, because I blame my I can fucking do it. Everyone can do it. Do it right. This is bullshit.
Crush him was fair and turret.
Who the fuck was that? Crush him! What the fuck?
Seriously, if you say one more fucking word, you're out of the fucking raid, and I'm done with this shit. I'm trying to fucking help you. If you can honestly just shut the fuck up and let me talk, I will.
Don't play like you're just fucking going through the motions. You'll get your goddamn loot eventually. God damn it!
That's a fucking 50 DKP minus! What the fuck was that shit? If you stand in
We
the
all
right
know these
fucking
people.
place,
You give them a minute amount of power, no matter how meager it may be, and they turn into Genghis Khan, a destructive warlord who rules with an iron fist. Consider yourself warned, those foolish enough not to listen to his or her commands. If you don't comply, and with a smile on your face, your time in the guild will be short.
I mean, am I making myself clear? Is anybody upset by the fact that I'm pointing everybody out and saying that that was a piss poor fucking job? Is anybody want to oppose? Please step up now and tell me why I'm wrong, that was a shitty performance.
These are people who've lost grip that the World of Warcraft, at the end of the day, is a video game, and the relationship more resembles that of an employer and an employee than it does a guild, except you're not getting paid. You show up during these raiding times, you sit down, clear comms, and keep your mouth shut.
Let me get this straightforward to you, you stupid fucking idiot! Your healing fucking blows dog shit! I don't know how to
No
put it
longer
more
is it
straightforward
an
than that!
environment of a bunch of friends cracking open some cold ones on a raid night and having a good time, but rather that of getting things done as fast as possible because no one can stand each other.
Now we're all gonna die up here. Nice job. Nice job. Everybody give the dumbass warlocks a fucking clap for not staying. For not listening to fucking simple ass motherfucking...
These guilds never last because, well, they're just not fun. I have a good example with my guild back in the day. I was in a semi-hardcore raiding guild in Classic. We did alright, typically hovering around number 2 or 3 for the server in progression, depending on the raid tier. We were never able to claim number 1 though. That belonged to a guild that we'll call Alpha for this video. They raided more than us. Typically we'd do 4 to 5 days a week, around 4-ish hours a night, so pretty demanding already, but Guild Alpha did 7 days a week and 8 hours a day, and not only that, the raiding environment was quite harsh. You pulled aggro and you made this fight take 4 seconds longer. I'm gonna have to write you up for this one. Worse, in our guild, we kicked up our feet a bit during raiding. Despite the demanding schedule, every raid night was genuinely fun to go to because we realized that it was a game at the end of the day, and we didn't take ourselves that seriously. Even though we weren't the best, and when the Burning Crusade launched we had our difficulties, our guild ended up thriving, and for quite a while took the number 1 spot for most of the Burning Crusade, whereas Guild Alpha broke apart shortly after the expansion's release.
What you got, bitch? What you got? Guys, loot your badges.
When you're constantly walking on eggshells and are on the cutting edge for so long, Eventually, something's bound to break. Like I said, the raid size reduction really tested guilds back then, and only the strongest survived. And at the end of the day, even if you're ahead on progression, a tyrannical raiding environment in the long run makes for a weak guild, where any wipe or dispute has the potential to set off the self-destruct.
Is that enough fucking motivation for you to fucking play proper?
Who else wants it other than rogues? Because all the rogues can't go on it. Kron, what are you doing?
What the fuck? Oh my god! What the fuck? Oh my god!
I'm going to kill myself right now.
The ultimate guild breaker. Akin to money in real life, the bottom line in World of Warcraft has always been, and always will be, loot. It's at the forefront of nearly every activity in the game, current or classic. You raid for loot, dungeon, PvP, earn gold so you can buy it, level profession so you can craft it, or betray and use those around you so you can get it. It's why, with the previous point, you suffer through unfun raiding environments to obtain, and just like money, it really brings out the worst of people and will test any guild. Today, with the advent of personal loot, which was released in the Mists of Pandaria expansion, it is really not a big deal. You kill a boss, and each player has a chance to receive their own personal loot. However, up until then, the bosses only dropped a set amount of pieces, and it was up to the players to decide who gets what. The pressure has been lessened over time, like I said, through the combination of epics in general being easier to obtain, raid size reductions, different avenues of obtaining comparable pieces of loot. Loot drama is at its peak in Classic, since these raids are the primary means of gearing up. There's no badge system or currency to serve as an alternative to progress your character if you have a dry spell in the raiding scene. The loot drama has been something that people vastly underestimated with the re-release of Classic, and many guilds have already fallen victim to it.
What? Wait, what? Yikes, dude.
You of course have the corrupt leadership core, who uses the guild to gear up themselves. Another example I have is another guild who use the DKP system. Basically, you gain points for killing bosses, and you spend it on gear in a bid against your guildmates, usually seen as the quote fair way of dishing out the loot. Back in the day, there was a guild whom the officers went heavily negative into DKP because they asked favors for their members to pass for them, which they probably did to earn those sweet good boy points. So, going into the AQ40 raid, they were heavily in the red, and they made the mysterious decision to reset DKP across the board for every member, evening everyone out to 0. The reason being is it's a new raid tier, so therefore everyone should start off from square one, and for no other reason, of course. It's just by happenstance, it just benefited the leadership the most. The thing that these tyrannical leaders don't realize before it's too late is that without the downtrodden members, they're kings of nothing. No matter how big they think themselves, they can't solo these raid bosses, and if people are consistently treated unfairly, they will leave. It's that simple. Case in point, the guild did clear through AQ40, even killing Cthulhu, which is really impressive back then. To finish AQ40 in vanilla, you had to have some serious dedication with some skilled members, but like many others, they dissolved shortly thereafter due to the unfair environment. And I'm picking on the leaders here, but the members can be just as big of a problem. The things that people will do for loot is pretty gross actually. To your face, they're your best friend, and then maybe you get something that they're after, and you hear later that they talk about you as if you're this heinous Disney-esque villain who stole what was rightfully theirs. Here's a little life tip for you. If someone is constantly trashing others in your presence, they're probably doing the same to you when you're not around. It's sort of like a high school drama, except it's even more sad when you realize that the primary audience of Classic are a bunch of aging 30-year-olds.
Because it's my life, Tiny. You might not appreciate that, you might not
understand. Why would you let it affect you like that? Why? It's a game.
Life. It is my life. You might not appreciate it or understand, but this is what I do with my life.
These are what we like to call drama Andes, and again, it's more prolific in Classic it seems. I think it's true that there are people who need to have some sort of drama in their life to keep them going. They thrive on it, and it's certainly true in World of Warcraft.
And you're making out as if I'm going going out of my way to insult you, which is not my intent. I'm trying to tell you I feel unprotected by you all.
Another personal example I can share with you are the old AQ40 mounts. Since the AQ40 range is so large, Blizzard showed a bit of mercy and put on the loot table a selection of epic mounts that players could use, even if they didn't have the epic mounts be trained. That's all well and good, but uh-oh, they come in different colors. Green, yellow, blue, and red, and it just so happens that the red mount has a lower chance to drop than anything else. There's no difference in functionality between them, it's literally just the color. Well, the officers in our guild thought it appropriate that they would be the ones to receive the red mounts first. Okay, that's fine. It's a little childish and petty, I think, but who cares? Who could possibly make a big issue out of it? Oh god. Well, it was a big issue. There was a certain druid in our guild, someone who had been raiding with us since the beginning, who wasn't going to stand for this bullcorn. He went on a huge public rant in guild chat, ultimatums were given, and ultimately, he ended up leaving and took a friend or two with him, all because of a red tint to a mount that you can't even use outside of the raid. The whole situation was ridiculous. Now, were the officers completely innocent here? Probably not, but drama Andes like this, if you let them, will eventually break apart a guild, and it just so happens that this mount fiasco was a good method of rooting them out.
Okay, stop the noise. Let's get everybody up.
Oh, who looted the fucking gold?
Hachi?
He ninja.
What the fuck?
Darian, quit touching that chest.
Darian! Con, what are you doing? What the fuck? Hachi, what the fuck, dude? You're still in here, you piece of shit.
I'm going to kill myself right now. See ya!
Dude, what the fuck?
Oh my god, I want to kill him. I want to fucking kill him.
Get a GM ticket this instant.
Boot him now.
I'll kick him out of the fucking guild.
You piece of shit! You piece of shit! I can't believe it! Oh my god.
Wow, man.
And he has my motherfucking gloves too!
I'm just disappointed in you. I don't care about the loot. I mean, honestly, you're such a fucking douchebag over a game.
And you of course have the classic ninja looting, where the power of the pixel is so strong that you're willing to steal to get what you want. Whether the guild was foolish enough to have it on the free-for-all setting, or maybe you're the GM and you loot something to yourself in a selfish manner, the ninja looter is a classic that spans across any MMO, not just World of Warcraft. Like the Cloud Song, for example.
But anyways, dude, Millie, if that's your name, I don't know if it is, you need to fucking calm down a little bit, dude.
I know you're part of the motherfuckers! You fucking stole my clown song! If I ever find out where you live, I'm gonna fucking kill you!
Like I said, it's the bottom line in World of Warcraft. It's a representation of that player's perceived hard work and dedication, and some are willing to do just about anything to get it.
Dude, I want to kill this motherfucker.
Just like many others in this list, the likelihood of all of this drama is increased the earlier you go into the game's lifespan.
You don't fuck with me, dude. You just don't.
And it certainly has been, and certainly will continue to be, a guild breaker. Hey man, it's purple, okay? All of these things I've listed, at the very least, are in control of the players. Tyrannical leadership,
Who the fuck?
loot,
Oh my god!
What the fuck?
Oh my
drama.
See the thing about it, Retro?
Emotions dramatizing, that's disgusting.
If you just act like a rational human, these are all avoidable, or at least tolerable, depending on the severity. You're willing to stick it out because the game overall is fun, right? Enter the Cataclysm expansion. The world of Azeroth has been remade. Having been scarred by the dragon Deathwing, the World of Warcraft saw the most changes it ever has in its history at that point. The talent system reworked, spells now segregated between specializations, the looking for raid system. This is the age of modern World of Warcraft, and the beginning of the mass exodus of subscribers that the game still struggles to stymie today. Nothing breaks guilds quite like a massive hemorrhage of members, and where the game peaked in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, it was met with a slow but steady decline of subscriptions from this expansion onwards. My guild went through everything, all of vanilla, the insanity that was the raiding scene in the Burning Crusade. Many of these lists will bring up pre-nerf Sunwell, fights such as Muru or Brutalis, pre-nerf Kil'Thas, fights so extremely challenging that guilds created on launch day of vanilla disbanded over the extreme pressure and frustration of being unable to conquer.
GD move, GD. I mean, but what's the problem? I mean, it's so easy!
My guild survived all of that and thrived all the way through the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, over 6 years of raiding. In Cataclysm, what did us in wasn't this unbeatable challenge. It wasn't toxic leadership or drama over loot. It was just an expansion that wasn't fun for us, and we weren't alone. I'm not going to go into the reasons why. You've probably heard it all by now. LFR mode, homogenized class balance, oversimplification of loot, RPG elements out the window, and some of the effects that started in Wrath started to take hold, such as heirloom items, dungeon finder, and too many difficulties in raiding. This isn't a rant on current World of Warcraft. The point is that slowly but surely, this guild that was hundreds strong started seeing more and more farewells in the forums as the last login timers in the list increased more and more, and never again would it recover because there simply wasn't a desire to keep playing by enough people. Thousands of guilds created on launch were in the same boat, and too many saw their end in Cataclysm, and the few that survived would dwindle further and further, climaxing in the Warlords of Draenor expansion, an expansion so bad that Blizzard stopped releasing subscription numbers. A funny bit of irony that the biggest guild breaker in World of Warcraft is World of Warcraft itself.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video. See you again soon.